Ratings agency Standard & Poor's downgraded France's credit rating January 13 from AAA to AA+. The direct impact on French capital-raising efforts will be minor until another ratings agency downgrades as well. Most major pension endowment investment funds hold certain percentages of their resources in certain asset classes. The single largest piece is normally AAA, and whether an asset is considered AAA is determined by the ratings of 2 of the 3 major ratings agencies. So yes, France will suffer from higher borrowing costs, but not until such point that a second agency downgrades it. That will certainly happen, maybe even this quarter, but the agencies follow their own internal schedule for such reviews, so there's no reliable timetable. So from a financial point of view, consider this more of a shot across the bow than anything else. Now, more downgrades are coming though, so it's a serious shot across the bow. The bigger issue is for the balance of power within the European system, and for pushing through the Treaty on Budgetary Control currently under fabrication in Brussels. To fully understand that, we need to take a step back and look at the EU as a whole. The European Union was created by France to serve French interests, and because of the terms by which World War II concluded, the Germans were forced to fund the process. But the original 6 European Community members have since expanded into the contemporary EU of 27. As the system grew, France's once unassailable control over it became diluted. In the post-Cold War era, Germany's reunification and reinvigoration ended French preeminence, and especially since 2008, Europe can best be described as a Franco-German partnership based on the concept of equality. That perception of equality is particularly important in 2012. Currently, the European states are negotiating a treaty to greatly deepen the EU, largely by establishing budgetary controls. Germany is attempting to dominate the treaty process to make those controls as strict as possible. After all, Germany's strength is in finance and economics. Paris is not opposed to that in principle, so long as the final text continues to grant France flexibility in enforcement. This is something that Germany is broadly willing to grant. After all, it would be very difficult for Berlin to simply impose its will on Europe without French collaboration and cooperation. Such joint efforts are critical if the treaty is going to succeed, and it's easy to see why. The Sarkozy-Merkel relationship sends a somewhat reassuring signal. The 2 strongest AAA economies in Europe are working together to fix the problem, as opposed to Germany seeks a final solution to Europe's problem. The concept of a common and equal front is critical to the management of Europe and the enactment of the treaty. Well, as the S&P downgrade just underlined, they're not equals. All the Eurozone negotiations to this point have been a game of voluntary gullibility. We're going to pretend that you're going to be implementing austerity. We'll pretend that Brussels, not Berlin, is the one that's asking you to balance your budget and rewrite your constitution. These illusions have been, and remain, necessary to the success of the European project. That is, to keep the EU member states looking to a collective European solution rather than to national solutions to the crisis. The lack of credibility works both ways. The Southern Europeans will be reluctant about plans whose only credible backer is Germany, just as the Germans will be reluctant to be the only ones writing checks. The downgrade of France cracks the myth of equality that has allowed Europe to function in the current environment. That myth needs to be restored if this treaty, this union, is going to succeed. And so Paris needs a win, a big win, to restore French credibility. Germany needs France to have that win for many of the same reasons. And French President Nicolas Sarkozy needs it for reasons both geopolitical and personal. After all, French presidential elections are only 12 weeks away, which means that Paris is about to become a very exciting place.